This video is brought to you by Sandmark. The Apple Watch Series 8, like most Apple Watches, comes in two sizes. There's the 41mm version, as well as the 45mm version. But which size should you get? Well, I've got both versions here today, and I'll be comparing them, showing you what they look like on my wrist. We'll also talk about the operating system and the pros and cons associated with each size to help you decide which size is right for you. Also, I will be giving away this brand new iPhone 14. If you guys want a chance to win, be sure to subscribe to the channel, like this video, and leave a comment with your favorite Apple Watch feature. Then follow me on Instagram at @DionSchudeboom, where I will announce the winner on October 16th. To start, let's quickly compare the prices of the Series 8. Now, the 41mm version comes in at $399 or £419, where the larger 45mm version comes in at $429 or £449. Now, this is a small difference in price, but is a big difference in look and feel. By the way, I'll leave all the purchase links down in the description. Okay, so first, let's take a look at what each watch looks like off wrist. Then we'll look at what different apps look like on each model and how they compare. And then after that, I'm going to share my final thoughts on which size you should get. So holding the two sizes in my hand, the difference in size is quite significant. The 45mm version is quite a bit taller as well as wider, and it's also a bit thicker. I would estimate around 20% thicker, and you do notice this when the watch is on your wrist, or if say you want to slide it under a cuff or under a sweater. And then looking at the sides, the digital crown and side button are identical. And then in terms of weight, the smaller 41mm version comes in at 32 grams, where the larger 45mm version comes in at 39. Now, this is a small difference, and in the hand or on the wrist, you don't really feel this. Before we compare how each watch looks like on the wrist, one of my favorite features of any Apple Watch is just how easy it is to change out the bands, as this allows you to match the watch to your outfit, your personality, or even occasion. And one band that I consider essential of any band collection is a good leather band. This is where the full-grain leather Apple Watch bands from Sandmark come in. These bands transform your Apple Watch into a luxury timepiece. Both the black and brown colors perfectly complement the Midnight Series 8. The bands are made from a full-grain leather that are going to last for years, with a rich patina that develops over time. This special full-grain leather has a finer grain that feels so supple and comfortable on the wrist. The band features a minimal and clean design that is perfect for everyday use. The brushed black buckle made from 316L stainless steel perfectly ties the band together. Sandmark's leather collection also has products for a range of other accessories, from AirPods to the MacBook Pro. To learn more about the full-grain Apple Watch leather bands from Sandmark, be sure to click the links in the description. A big thank you to Sandmark for supporting the channel. Now back to the Apple Watches. Okay, so let's talk about how each of the sizes wears on the wrist. Now, for context, I have 155mm wrists, or 6 inches in diameter, so that should put my wrist size into context. On my wrist, the 45mm Series 8 is just a little bit less wide than my wrist is. I would say there's a couple of millimeters to spare on each side, compared to the 41mm version, where I would say there's total of around a centimeter of room to spare. Now, because the 45mm version has a larger watch case, you can see that the sports band does stick out a little bit more on either side of the watch case before folding and then tapering down on my wrist. Whereas on the 45mm version, you can see it sits a little more flush. Now, if you do have larger wrists, I imagine this will be less of an issue. At the same time though, what I do think is good is if you have, say, your arms on the table, you're not likely to hit the watch case or the display on either side, as at first I thought this would be more easy to do on the larger 45mm version, but normally speaking, your watch case or display won't hit the table. Earlier, we talked about weight, and on the wrist, you really don't feel this difference. But what you do feel is the difference in bulk. If, say, I am moving my arms around, going to shake someone's hand, or for example, just typing on my keyboard, I do feel that the 45mm version is just a bit more bulky on my wrist, where the smaller 41mm version is more unobtrusive. Also, with longer sleeves, the 41mm version is definitely easier to tuck underneath or put under the cuff. So this is definitely something to think about if you wear suits often. At the end of the day, this of course comes down to personal preference. If your wrist size is similar to mine, I would say that both sizes ultimately do work, but one size is best, and that is the 41mm version. I think it looks more proportionate on the wrist, looking more like a timepiece rather than a gadget or a computer. Okay, so the 41mm version looks best on my wrist, but that doesn't mean to say that the 45mm version doesn't have its own advantages, and this is most apparent when it comes to the operating system and general usability of the watch. Of course, the 45mm version has a larger display, which has more pixels and therefore can show more text and menus at a given time. Comparing the home screens of both watches, they show the same amount of apps, but the icons are larger on the 45mm version. And then when we open the settings app, you can see that the bottom option, general, is more visible on the 45mm version. And then scrolling through settings, you can see that menus are slightly bigger on the 45mm version, but they're still very readable on the 41mm version as well. Now, I want to compare an email. Here you can see first that both are very readable. The Apple Watch does a great job at formatting text to be legible. But again, on the 45mm, text is a bit bigger, and at the same time, you can also see more of it. And this difference is shown even more in messages, where you can see that the text is bigger on the 45mm version, but since the message bubble is also wider, it's also able to show more text per lines on screen at a time. I wouldn't describe the difference here as being night and day, as both models are very easy to use. At the same time though, the larger UI on the 45mm version is extra comfortable and may also be better if you have seeing difficulties. At the end of the day, which size should you go for? Well, first, I think it is important to remember that both sizes have the exact same features, battery life, as well as performance. Now, yes, the battery on the 45mm version is a bit bigger, but so is the display, so naturally that takes more battery, and at the end of the day, it cancels out on both. Depending on how you have your watch set up, it should easily last you for a full day. But getting back to the sizes, I would say if your wrist size is close to 6 inches or 155mm in diameter, my advice would be to go for the smaller 41mm version, as it just looks more proportionate on the wrist and is also more comfortable to wear. If you have a larger wrist size, the 45mm version may be the better one for you. Hopefully that helps you out with your buying decision when picking between these two sizes, but let me know in the comments which size do you think is best, or do you think I should just wear both of them like this? I could do that too. Anyway guys, thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I'll see you in the next video. Take care.